rest of it.
There's more.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 action thriller Icefall. The film is directed by Stefan Rozotsky and it stars Joel Kinnaman, Danny Houston and Graham Greene, that I believe was his final role before he sadly passed. Now the film focuses on Joel Kinnaman's character Harlan. Now he's living in like an Alaskan type area, lots of snow, lots of ice. He is a hunter and a poacher, and he lives out in the wilderness all by himself. He lives off the land. He used to have a wife and daughter, but unfortunately he lost them both. So he's essentially kind of trying to find himself, trying to make peace with himself out there in the wilderness. And one day while out in the wilderness, he comes across a lake. And in that lake, the frozen lake, he discovers a case full of money. And when he investigates further, there is a plane down there with many more cases similar to it, with clearly millions of dollars in there. And 6 months previously, there was a robbery that took place. The plane crashed into this lake, and the criminals were never able to locate where the money had gone. However, once he gets hold of this case, Joel Kinnaman's character, it activates a beacon. So the criminals learn the location of this case. They head out there, hunt down Joel Kinnaman's character and a Native American sheriff who is partnering up with him, and try to hunt them down to discover not only where the case is that they have, but also where the rest of the money is. Right, what are my thoughts on Icefall? This is, it's got a really good cast, actually. We've got Joel Kinnaman, who we know is more than capable of fronting, movies like this, action thriller type movies. He's done it a number of times before. He's, suits the part very well. You've got Danny Houston, who is playing another villainous character, which he kind of does with his eyes closed these days, and you could argue he pretty much phones in his performance here. He's not in it a huge amount, but he's in it enough to kind of, have an impact, I suppose. And we've got Graham Greene, excuse me. As I've mentioned, I think this is his final role. He kind of plays like, one of the elders at the local Native American tribe. He's got a beef with Joel Kinnaman's character because Graham Greene was related to his wife. So he feels like, his wife's death was all Joel Kinnaman's fault, Harlan's fault. So, he's got a bit of a beef with him. But ultimately, all them things have to be put to one side for them to kind of work together, stay alive, and keep out of arm's reach of these criminals that are chasing them down. The only major advantage that they have is that they know the land better than these criminals, especially Joel Kinnaman, as he is obviously a hunter and a trapper, and he can kind of use the environment to their advantage to kind of, take out these criminals that are chasing them down. So it's like a pursuit action film, really. They're being pursued by these criminals. They're trying to stay alive, stay one step ahead of them. And obviously, ultimately, it ends with a huge kind of confrontation, as you would expect. So it's pretty standard stuff, I think it's fair to say here. But it is done to a strong level. The production values are all good, the cinematography at times is fine in regards to, the location. It feels very threatening, the environment, the ice cracking and melting sort of thing, and then kind of going in. There's a couple of scenes that really highlight that do actually work quite well in regards to adding thrills to the film. But I mean, ultimately, what I was thinking while I was watching this is it's almost like a cross between Cliffhanger and Crocodile Dundee 2, this film, which might sound like a strange combo. Now, Cliffhanger, imagine Cliffhanger but without the cliffs. It's a similar concept. It's an icy environment and there's a big pile of money somewhere. And Joel Kinnaman's character knows where it is and the criminals want it, so they're chasing him, sort of thing. So that's the Cliffhanger similarities. The Crocodile Dundee 2 similarities is, the second part of Crocodile Dundee where he goes back to Australia and the criminals follow him. He's got the advantage because that's his terrain, that's his environment, it's his home. So he's always one step ahead of the criminals, generally speaking. And that's where this film compares to Crocodile Dundee, because Joel Kinnaman's character, for the most part, is one step ahead of the criminals in regards to knowing the environment and using it to his advantage. But obviously, with this being, the type of film that it is, like an action thriller, the criminals, the bad guys, who are, for the most part, very, very generic. I mean, that is a major downfall here of this film. They are very generic. I mean, they try and mix it up a bit by putting one of the criminals in the group who is a priest or a pastor who used to be part of the gang, but he has since found God. Why? I don't know. He, at the beginning when they come back and they kind of re-recruit him back into the group, why he does it, I don't really know. But they don't really do a great deal with his character. So they try and do something a little bit different, but for the most part, the criminal gang is incredibly generic and, not memorable. Which is why they try and put Danny Houston as part of that group, as their top guy sort of thing. But like I say, he just kind of turns up when they need, him to kind of do his pantomime mustache twirling routine. But I mean, they do get the upper hand a few times in the film. Of course they do. They're the skilled like criminals, but for the most part, it is really Joel Kinnaman and this Native American sheriff trying to keep out of arm's reach of them, trying to work together to get an advantage. These criminals chasing them, and then as you'd expect, a confrontation sort of thing. It's not bad, this film. It's not one that you'll watch and think, wow, that was fantastic or anything like that. But it's also not one that I think most people will watch and think, well, that was an absolute waste of my time. No, I think there's good production values here. It's got a strong cast. And while it might be a fairly familiar story, it's done to a decent standard. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Icefall, guys. Hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful. And, of course, I will be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.